Hey everybody, it's Brian Haskins here, and I want to welcome you for the webinar tonight. So we're going to cover a lot of stuff on this call. I'm going to try to keep it around an hour and a half to 2 hours. But basically, what we're going to do is I'm going to share with you the exact framework that you need to follow in 2025 to get your first deal done. So that's my goal for today. Is I want to share with you the exact, very simple framework that's going to walk you through exactly what you need to do to close your first deal in 2025. But the bigger goal that I have for you today is to really help you turn this into a real business, because what I've found is that over the years, so many people that come into wholesaling, they think that everything's going to be solved if they can just see their first deal done or if they can do their first deal. But in reality, there's so much more that goes into this business to where you need to really learn your market, help gain the confidence to understand why you're doing the things that you're doing in your business to really turn this into a real business. So that's what I'm going to teach you tonight, is really share with you how to think bigger, how to understand, how to know why you're doing the things that you're doing. So that way you can carry this into and turn it into a real business in 2025. Because I know it may seem like it, but if you just see a deal, it's not really going to help you. Or if you do your first deal, you're still going to have a lot of things that you're going to learn. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and every deal is still so much different. So let's dive into and talk a little bit about kind of what we're going to build today. And again, we're going to be building today. We're going to share with you real world examples. I'm not going to be teaching you theory, telling you what you need to do. I'm actually going to show you how to dive deep into and really get that first deal done, the exact framework, the exact steps that you need to follow to close your first deal. So to do that, we're going to talk about today and build out how to actually pick your market or build your market for your wholesaling business. So wholesaling is a very great strategy, works in most markets, but there's certain things that we need to kind of take into account and kind of think about to make sure that you're in the right part of your market. Or if you decide to do this virtually, go through some different options. Then I'm going to help you identify the best buyers in your market. Now, these are the people that are doing deals consistently and paying the most. Now, this is going to be a lot different than probably a lot of you are thinking right now. And this is going to really open up your eyes to understand why maybe you've been struggling to get that first deal and some of the things that we need to do a little bit different that's going to make this process so much easier. From there, I'm going to show you how to locate and find what we call pre-sold properties, which I'm going to share with you here what that means here in a little bit. And then we're going to talk about and actually create some marketing campaigns and marketing strategies that are going to work best for you in 2025. This is probably one of the single biggest mistakes that most wholesalers make, is they have no idea what kinds of marketing strategies they need to be doing for themselves in their wholesaling business. They try to mimic what they learn online or other gurus, and a lot of those strategies really only set you up for failure. So we're going to walk through and kind of help you understand what marketing strategies are going to be best for you. And then I'm going to share with you how to make win-win offers. So these are going to be offers that sellers are willing to accept, and buyers are going to be knocking down your door to buy those properties. So again, it's going to be a win-win offer, setting you up to maximize the biggest profits on your deals. Show you how to actually get the business up and running as quickly as possible. And to do that, I want to kind of share a little bit about why some of the biggest reasons that wholesalers struggle to get that first deal done. So if you're watching this video, most likely you're probably newer to the business, or maybe you've been trying for a little while. Maybe it feels like you've tried everything and nothing has worked for you. Most of us go to watching videos, buying courses, and what we do is listen to podcasts. So all these types of things are great because it's information. But what we find is that so much information in many cases is going to lead us down all these different paths. So what I'm going to share with you today is just one simple start to finish way that you can close your first deal. So many people come to me and say, well, there's a million different ways to wholesale. And in reality, there's not. Wholesaling is very, very specific. We need to get in front of the right opportunities to find people that need to sell. We find a solution for them, which in many cases is for us to make them a cash offer. We then put that property under contract, assign that contract over to an end buyer that's going to close on that deal. So that's wholesaling. I mean, that really is what it is. But I know what a lot of people are thinking is that there's lots of ways to find deals, lots of ways to structure deals. And look, here's the thing. So many people create all these different ideas and concepts to try to sell you something. But in reality, what you understand, or what you have to understand, is that not all those strategies are going to be the best fit for you. So today in this video, we're going to talk more kind of the framework from someone that's new to the business, that is either number one, trying to get that first deal, or someone that's maybe done a couple of deals that's looking to build that consistency. So if you have tried this for a little while, you've bought all the courses, you followed all the videos, and you think you did everything, but you still haven't done that first deal, I'm going to share with you exactly why. And for most of you, the reason why you haven't been able to close your first deal is because you're following the traditional wholesaling model. Okay. So the traditional wholesaling model was never meant for new investors. Okay. So let me explain what that means. And I'll kind of talk about what traditional wholesaling is and kind of what we're going to talk about today. But traditional wholesaling never, ever meant for new investors. It's very difficult to do unless you already understand your market. So what we're going to do is a little bit different. So the solution is going to be kind of the framework that I'm going to share with you today. But traditional wholesaling teaches you to essentially go out and find properties first. Okay, so go out, pick an area that you want to work in, throw a bunch of marketing out there to kind of see what sticks. Once you find someone that wants to sell, make them a lowball offer, try to get that property under contract. Once you get that property under contract, then from there, the goal is to shop that around, try to find a buyer. Hope that you found a property in the right area. Hope that you found a property that a buyer is interested in. Hope that you got that property under contract for the right price. And hope that you're able to find a buyer that's actually going to be able to close on that property so you can make a bigger profit than what you spent trying to acquire that property. Okay, so that's traditional wholesaling. And the reason why that's so difficult for new investors is because you don't know your market. You don't know where to find properties. You don't know your buyers. You don't know what kinds of properties to find for those buyers. You don't know what kind of an offer you need to make for that property. So essentially, you are trying to build this business blindly, hoping that you do everything right so that way you can finally squeak out a little bit of a paycheck. And that's the reason why so many people struggle in this business, is because that approach is very difficult. It is extremely hard to do. So what I want to share with you today is a much easier concept. It's still wholesaling. It's just we're going to switch the steps up a little bit to make it a lot easier for you to do as a new investor. So again, traditional wholesaling was never meant for new investors. But the problem is most gurus and most people that teach wholesaling teach from where they're at in the business. They teach from what they are doing because that's what they know. But in reality, what happens is that attracts a lot of new people to this business. But what they're teaching is not designed for you as a new investor. Again, traditional wholesaling sets you up for failure as a new investor. But a very simple adjustment to what we're going to do in this business is going to make it easier. So the steps are not going to be any different. Nothing is going to change. We're just going to do them in a slightly different order. And it's going to make this business so much easier for you as a brand new investor. All right, so let's talk about this. So I'm going to teach you today a strategy that I call market-driven wholesaling. Okay, I've also called it the six-figure wholesaler method. It's also known in some cases as reverse wholesaling, but this is a much deeper process and a little bit more kind of, in depth than what reverse wholesaling is. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what this does. Well, what we do is we kind of flip traditional wholesaling on its head. So instead of kind of starting with trying to find sellers and casting that big wide net to try to find deals, we actually identify our market demand first. So we know who's buying, we know what they're buying and what they're paying for properties and what they want to buy more of before we ever step foot and actually, start marketing and trying to do this business. So by identifying what our market demand is, it makes the process so much easier and it's completely intuitive. So as you see today, as we go to build this, every step that we take, starting with step 1, is going to lead you to step 2, which is going to lead you to step 3, which is going to lead you to step 4. So we're building the business and kind of rigging it in our favor, setting ourselves up to win. Whereas traditional wholesaling, at every step, you're guessing. And if you don't get that guess right, then the deal falls apart. Whereas with what I'm going to share with you today, everything is going to become so much more simple, so much more intuitive, and it's going to be so much easier for you as a brand new wholesaler or someone that's looking to get that consistency dialed in. It's going to be so much easier for you to be able to kind of do this. So who am I? Very quickly, and why should you listen to me? Look, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Most of you probably know who I am. If you registered for this video, you're somewhere in my little sphere. But this is my 22nd year investing in real estate full-time. 22 years in the business, all right? So I got my start investing in my very early 20s, so in the early 2000s, and I got started rehabbing houses. So I don't know how many of you remember kind of back then, but rehabbing houses was all the rage. There was all these flipping houses TV shows on where people were basically buying properties off the MLS. They were putting a little bit of money into the property, and they were making 10, 15, 25, 100, $200,000 profits on those deals. And they fit all that into a 30-minute TV show. So for me, I got hooked on that. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I basically got started doing that. And back then, if you got into the real estate business, you couldn't lose. I mean, money was just growing on trees in those times. You could buy properties, like I said, right off the MLS, put a little bit of money into them, flip them. Well, in 2008, by then, I had a very, very big operation. I was rehabbing 10, 15 properties at a time. I was making millions and millions of dollars in my early 20s. And I was basically just kind of lucky. That's why I was successful in real estate. But in the 2000s, you, like I said, you pretty much could not make money in real estate. But in 2008, the real estate market fell out, and nobody really knew it was coming. It was kind of a shock to everybody. So at that point in time, I had 20 plus properties that I owned, that I was either at varying points of buying the property, working on the property, trying to sell that property, but the entire bottom fell out of the real estate market. And I was left basically trying to cover the cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in payments. So I had very high interest loans. Back then we did a lot of hard money. We were paying 18%. There was just a lot of things that were going on. I had a lot of overhead. I had a lot of crews of people that were working on my properties. I was living a pretty extravagant lifestyle at that time. I lost everything. I basically had to move back home with my parents. I was on the verge of bankruptcy. I didn't really know what to do. But basically I had to cover hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in payments and overhead to be able to essentially keep myself out of bankruptcy, foreclosure, and all these different types of things like that. So the strategy that I'm going to share with you today is the exact process that I use to dig myself out of millions of dollars in debt in the middle of literally the worst real estate market in history. Okay. Now, I know what you're thinking. A lot of people are telling you that, real estate changes all the time, and it does. But the method that I'm going to share with you today worked back then. It works today. So what changes is more marketing strategies and like the other stuff. But wholesaling as a whole hasn't really changed a whole lot. The process of identifying properties, people that need to sell, making them offers on as-is properties, buying it below market value, selling that for a profit doesn't change. But this strategy that I'm going to share with you today is the exact reason why I was able to dig myself out of that debt. So what you have to understand is that back then, the real estate market completely collapsed. It felt like nobody was buying properties because nobody was rehabbing and selling because people weren't buying at retail. But what happened was there were still a lot of people that were quietly becoming millionaires during the worst real estate recession of our time. And the reason why I was able to dig myself out and still build a wholesaling business that allowed me to close many deals, cover my overhead, dig myself out of debt while I was able to sell those properties is exactly what I'm going to share with you today. It's because I kind of went back to the drawing board. I had to understand who was buying properties, what were they buying, and I had to make adjustments to my business to be able to build an actual business that allowed me to get myself out of debt. So what I'm going to share with you today is so important because it works in any market. It works in good markets. It works in bad markets. It works in recessions. And the reason why is because I am going to teach you how to understand your market, how to understand shifts in your market and be 3 steps ahead of everything you do. And if you don't learn the business the way that I'm going to teach you right now, you're constantly going to be in that feast or famine cycle. You're going to have those ups and downs. And it's because you are trying to rely on gurus to teach you what to do in this business. But what I'm going to share with you today, you're going to become an expert in your market. You're going to do this without ever having to do a deal because you're going to understand how to think like a wholesaler, how to think about why you're doing the things that you're doing and understand and gain the confidence, even though you've never done a deal. And that's going to be so huge. So I want everybody to kind of be interactive as we're starting to go through this. Give me a thumbs up. Make sure everything's making sense. I know that we've got a lot of stuff to cover here, but I really want to make sure that what we're doing today is working. So let me know if this makes sense. Drop me some comments below. And I want to make sure that you guys are interacting and following, because what we're going to jump into now is going to be the very first step and probably one of the most instrumental parts of you being successful or not, and that is understanding your market. So I'm going to teach you how to kind of do this and how to know if you're in a good market. Okay. So what we look at in this business and what you have to understand is that as wholesalers, we have a boss. Okay. Our boss is our buyers. Buyers dictate every single thing that we do in our business. So what does that mean? They dictate where we find properties. They dictate what kinds of properties that we find. They dictate what kind of offers we make to sellers. They dictate what we're going to do with those properties, what we can sell those properties for, and everything in between. So the faster we realize that and the faster we utilize who our buyers are and who we want to work with, the stronger we can become in this business. Now, again, what we have to understand is that our market is probably great for wholesaling. And so many people want to do this business virtually, sitting on a beach, sipping on margaritas, where they're just talking on their phone, closing deals. Look, at least in the beginning, that's a pretty difficult thing to kind of to do, because this is a business to where we're dealing with people that are going through the lowest points in their life, people that are having problems so big that they're willing to trade their equity for us to be able to solve that problem. So for a little while, it's going to be best if you can do this business locally in your area. It's also going to be best if you can do this to where you're going and talking with the sellers, meeting with the homeowners. That's going to be how you're going to get the best results. Now, can you build a business to where we do this virtually? Absolutely. Okay. But a lot of people are going to tell you that you need to do this virtually, or that you can do this working an hour a day, sitting on a beach somewhere. And we can build a business to where that's a reality. But when you're first starting out, we got to put a little bit of work in. And I'm going to share with you how to make that easy. So let's talk about how to know if your market is good for wholesaling. So many people make claims about you need to be in a big enough area, you need to have the right price point, you need to have an area that's not too saturated, you need to have an area to where the days on market are low or high, or whatever all these different calculations are. But there's only one thing that lets you know if you're able to wholesale in your market, and that's buyer activity. Again, everything else goes out the window when we deal with facts and data. I'm going to share with you how to understand facts and data instead of listening to all these gurus talk about all these different calculations that they're doing that just makes it so complicated for you. So I, number one, always try to work with students in their own market first, okay? Saturation, competition, those aren't things that I really care about, because I'm going to share with you how to be a good enough wholesaler to beat out your competition, okay? So for me, if there's buyers buying in your market, you can do deals, okay? Now, if you're in a market where the properties are really high, inventory is really low, these are all things that we can overcome. But in some markets, it is going to be easier. But again, what we look at is that most likely your market is going to be fine for doing deals. So what we kind of look at is that you can pretty much wholesale anywhere that buyers are buying. Is it going to be better if we've got large demand? Is it going to be better if we have lots of properties? Is it going to be better if we have a lower price point? Is it going to be better if we don't have too much saturation? Yes, those are all things that we kind of look at. So let's take a look at some of the ideal things that we want to kind of look for when it comes to a market. So obviously size. So we want to look at areas. So I start out with a county. So instead of a city, instead of a couple of zip codes, we want to start out with a county, and then we want to narrow it down. So in your county, if we want to look for an ideal market, we want a market that's going to be about 200,000 to 400,000 people. All right, so that's what we're looking for, 200 to 400,000 people. We want to deal with properties that are about 400,000 or less as far as price point goes. Now, if you're at 500,000 or less, that's probably fine. But it becomes harder. There's less buyers in many cases when we're dealing with that higher price point, because it makes it harder for them unless they're doing rehabbing and stuff like that, where below that price point, it does become a little bit easier. Saturation, I don't really care too much about competition. There's never a market that's too competitive. I do deals in some of the most competitive markets in the country because I'm able to understand how to find the right kinds of properties, which is part of what I'm going to teach you today. Days on market, how quickly things are selling in the MLS, that doesn't really matter too much to me because I deal off market So for me, what I look at is I create my own inventory. But what we're looking for, again, is we need to find an area that's got good movement, good buyer activity. I'm going to show you exactly how we do that here in a little bit. But what do you do if you're in a market that's not good for wholesaling? Well, the next thing we kind of look at is we want to look for a close by market. So again, if you're within a 45-minute radius, that's fine. We can still do that. We can also combine with another county if we don't have enough, or we can look into virtual markets. But again, local wholesaling is always going to be easier than virtual wholesaling. So this whole idea of nationwide wholesaling or virtual wholesaling, it becomes more difficult because we don't know the market is good. We don't necessarily know the buyers as good. So what we have to kind of consider is that it's going to be a little more difficult. But what we kind of want to look for is buyer activity. So that's kind of what we want to kind of look for to make sure that we're in the right market. So let's dive in. Let's take a look at some numbers. I'm going to pull up my PropStream account right now, and I'm going to share with you exactly how I go about kind of dialing these numbers in. But while I'm doing that, drop me a comment below. Are you local? Are you doing this virtual? Okay. So here's the thing. Virtual wholesaling, in many cases, you're going to have to find somebody that's going to be your boots on the ground. Again, we don't want to make this too complicated. If you can do deals in your local area, absolutely. That's what I always suggest. But you can do this business virtually. It's just slightly structured a little bit different. All right, so let's dive in and take a look at some numbers here. So PropStream is kind of the process or the system that I like to use for my business. There's other tools out there. So many people get caught up in this BS that they think PropStream is dated. So all these other companies that are trying to break into the market created these smear campaigns against PropStream. Look, PropStream is the industry leader. They've been around the longest. They have the most amount of data. So what you have to understand is that I've compared PropStream to hundreds of other platforms out there. PropStream has the most amount of data. It is the most accurate. It is the most updated. But all these other companies that are smearing PropStream, they buy their information from the same places. There is no information that is going to be more accurate than what you get on PropStream. It is what it is. If you can't afford PropStream, there's other free alternatives and things like that out there that you can utilize. But again, for today's purposes, this is what we're going to kind of utilize because they do by far have the most accurate information. Like I said, it is what it is. PropStream is the industry leader. Okay. So what we're going to look for is kind of market demand. So obviously when it comes to properties, we can pick big areas. So an area like Maricopa County. So this is obviously Arizona. So we're in an area where there's 175,000 properties. That's huge. That's great. So like I said, we can do that. We know that's going to be a good area. Let's say that you're in smaller areas like, we can just let's take a look at like St. Louis, Missouri. So St. Louis, if we look at this, it's going to be St. Louis County. We've got about 382,000 properties. That's huge. That's great. That's going to be over our 200,000. So that's going to be kind of our ideal kind of area. Now, if you're in like a small area in South Dakota or North Dakota or some of these places where you're dealing with like 80,000 people in your area, that's totally fine too. We can combine 2 counties or 3 counties. But ideally, we want to get in an area where we've got about 200,000 people is kind of what we're looking for as far as kind of market size goes. Now, if you are moving into a new area and you want to try to understand kind of what those kind of numbers look like, well, again, 200 to 400,000 people, under about 500,000 as far as your average price goes. So those are the types of things that we kind of look for when it comes to picking a market. And then we're going to dial in based on our buyers. So again, we're going to base everything on the buyers, what they're buying, where they're buying, and what they want to buy more of. So that's what we're going to take a look at kind of as our next step here. Is we're going to talk about finding buyers. But what we have to understand is that it's not just about finding buyers. We really want to find the best buyers. So if any of you have bought my book, The 6-Figure Wholesaler Method, or if you watch any of my videos, what I teach you is that we really only need 3 to 5 of what we call the right buyers. I call them golden ticket buyers, but these are basically the buyers that are buying deals consistently and paying the most in our market. That's what we look for. So when we're dealing with buyers, the reason why we want to find just 3 to 5 of the best buyers is because the idea and the concept of building a big buyers list is really one of the reasons why so many new investors struggle. Because let's say you do get it right. Let's say you do find a great property, but you try to sell that property and you have the wrong buyers. What happens is, number one, either it's a bunch of rehabbers that are looking to lowball you, and you've got to make offers so low to sellers that you can't get any deals done. Or you have a bunch of tire kickers or a bunch of other wholesalers or realtors on your list, people that are never actually going to buy that property, or people that are just going to try to tie it up. And then they never close on that deal, and it ends up killing your deal. So there's so many things that can go wrong. So what we want to kind of look for is we just want to identify 3 to 5 of the best buyers. So the idea and the concept of building a big buyers list, I know you're probably thinking it gives you more opportunity to sell your properties, but in reality, the people that are on big buyers list, the people that you're finding on Facebook, the people that you're finding at your local RIA, they're not real buyers. Okay, so what I'm going to share with you today is how to go directly to the source, how to confirm that these are real buyers that are buying properties right now, they're buying multiple properties right now, and they're paying the most in your area. So what you have to understand is that all these buyers that you're wasting your time with that are telling you, yes, I'm a buyer, add me to your buyers list, yes, I'm buying all these properties, they're probably lying to you. And the reason why is because a lot of those people are trying to do what's called daisy chaining your deals, where they're going to try to have their own buyers list and they're going to shop your property around and see if they can't make $1,500 or $2,000 or $3,000. 90% of the people on your buyers list are going to hurt you in this business. They're either going to give you the runaround, they're going to contract the property and not be able to close, or they're going to try to daisy chain your deals. Don't build a buyer's list. We only want to identify the buyers that we want to work with. And the reason why is because for you to close deals and for you to be able to do this business, you need to be in control. And what I mean by that is we need to control who we want to sell to. So finding the right buyers not only allows us to ensure that we're going to close on that property, but it also allows us to get more offers accepted because we're able to be a lot more strategic with our offers if we're working with better buyers. But we can also secure bigger profits on our deals and get more offers done, get more deals done. So when we work with the right buyers and we control this, we know where to find properties. We know what kinds of properties to look for. We know if we find a property, what kind of an offer we need to be able to make that a deal. And then lastly, what can we sell it for without leaving any money on the table? This is why selling to the right buyers makes all the difference in the world. So by you being in control, even if you've never done a deal, if you structure things the way that I teach you right now, you're going to be the expert in your market, even if you've never done a deal, because we're going to be dealing with facts and data and what's actually going on. So we're just tweaking the way that you understand, the way that you frame your business. So we're identifying the buyers up front that we want to work with that are going to be better buyers. Okay. So that's the beauty of the real estate business. Not all buyers are created equal. Okay. When we sell to better buyers, we're able to make more profit on deals. We're able to get more offers accepted, and we're able to get more deals done. So instead of selling to rehabbers that are going to beat you up on price. So think about it like this. We've got rehabbers that are looking to make as much money as they possibly can up front on their deal. So they need to buy that property at a much deeper discount. Whereas we have other buyers that maybe are looking to keep that property as a rental or something else. They don't have to make all their money up front. So what that allows us to do is that allows them to pay more for their deals. So that's why we want to be able to kind of work with specific buyers. All right. So what makes a good buyer? Two things. Very simple. Number one, they're buying multiple properties in a short time frame. Okay. Multiple properties in a short time frame. Two, they are paying the most for properties in your area. So this is so important. Okay. And again, I'm not teaching you theory. I'm not saying, oh, go find these better buyers. We're going to do it right now. We're going to actually go through and build your buyers list. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So we're going to pop PropStream up again. We can just use St. Louis because the area is fine. Like I said, we have almost 400,000 properties here. So how do we build the buyers list? Well, to do that, we come in here and we're going to apply filters. Now, PropStream, their filters are pretty simple. We can come in here and we can look at and assign different filters to what we want. So for today's example, we're going to deal directly with residential properties, okay? We're going to deal with single-family properties, and we also want small multifamily properties, so multifamily 2 to 4 and duplex. Now, we're not going to put any other information in here right off the bat, except for building size. We're going to do 500 square foot to go up to like 3,000 square feet. Let's see, lot size. Let's just go up to an acre just to keep it really simple, because we want to make sure that we're finding properties that are going to be good, usable properties. And then let's do properties that are a little bit older. Let's go to like, let's do like 2012 and before. That's going to give us some really good property information. So since we're dealing with buyers, we are going to deal directly with properties that are not on the MLS. And we're going to deal directly with properties that are owned but not lived in. So owner occupied, no. And I like to find buyers that are buying properties as a corporation, okay? The reason why I do that is because these are going to be professional buyers, not mom and pop buyers. But again, what's more important is people that are buying multiple properties in a very short time frame. But we can see we've got 77,000 properties that fit our criteria. Now, obviously, we need to narrow that down. So our goal to kind of start with is we need about 200 properties. So let's go ahead and let's do our corporate. So these are people that are buying properties in a corporation. And then the last thing we want to look at to narrow this number down, we've got 33,000 properties. Let's take a look at our last sale date. So let's just say that we want properties that are bought between a pretty short time frame. Because again, we want people that you can go up to about 6 months. Now, since we've got such a big list here, we probably only need to go back a month or two. We can go back to like November. So we have 721. That's a significant amount of investor bought property. So what you have to understand is right now, these are not just any properties. These are investor bought properties. So let me go back to December. We don't need that big of a list. Again, you want to just get about 200 for what we're doing right now. So that's exactly what we're looking for. So if we see our filters, we can see right here we've done residential, single family, multifamily, 500 to 3,000 square foot, a lot size of 1 acre or less, built before 2012, not on the MLS, not owner occupied, so they do not live in the home. That's huge because that tells us these are investors, okay? Own the property as a corporation, not on the MLS, and basically bought between today's date and then December. All right, so we have 257 properties. So if we look at this right here, we can say, okay, let's go ahead and add this to a list. We're going to just add this 1, 8, 25. Go ahead and click save. So now by doing that, we can come over here to my properties. And I can export this information now. So by doing this, we've already built a buyer's list. Now, what's so crucial about this and what is so important for you to understand is that these are real buyers. These are not people telling us they are buyers, okay? These are people that bought properties within the last 38 days, okay? That is the single most important thing to understand is that we are not dealing with a theory now. We're dealing with actually what's going on in your market. So if you go back the last 6 months or so, we want to try to get up to 200 buyers. Now, if you have 100 buyers in the last 6 months, that's still fine. That's a good viable market, but that's what we want to look for. Now, the next step is we only want to deal with duplicate buyers, people that bought multiple properties in a short time frame. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why don't we keep all these people on this list? It's going to give us more opportunity. That's not what we're looking for. We want to identify the right buyers, okay? So people that are buying properties consistently, paying the most for deals in our area. So now that we've exported our info, we can see here our owner last name. So that's going to be basically the company. So if we just click sort and filter, what that's going to do for us is that's going to give us all of our duplicate buyers grouped together. So as we scroll through here, we can see we've got a ton of duplicate buyers, okay? So first step, we just come in here and anybody that's not a duplicate buyer, let's just go ahead and delete them. So we come in here, anybody that's not a duplicate buyer, we're just going to delete them. So you're going to wind up with a list of buyers that are buying multiple properties in this short time frame. So for us, obviously, we know that's just basically the last 38 days. So if we eliminate these, obviously it's going to take me too long to do that for a couple hundred properties, but you can see right here all these duplicate buyers. That's step one. So now that you do that, that's going to give you a list of buyers that are buying properties consistently in a short time frame. This company bought 4 properties in 38 days. This company here bought 4 properties, 3 properties, 4. So why is this important? This is important because we know these are real buyers that are going to be ready to buy more properties when we have something ready to sell. These are the types of buyers that we want. If we're dealing with mom and pop buyers that are buying 1, 2 properties a month, what happens, or I'm sorry, 1 or 2 properties a year, we're going to add them to our list and then we're going to send our deal out to them and they're not going to be ready to buy. They're not the types of buyers that we want. So let's identify just these duplicate buyers. Now, second thing that we want to look for, and this is going to blow your mind, but what we look for is now we can identify the buyers that are paying the most for properties in our area. So the way that we do that is once we've narrowed down our duplicate buyers, we come over here and we can see right here, last sale amount and estimated value. So these 2 fields right here are really important for us because what we can see, this is what they paid versus what the value is. So this person paid just under retail. This person paid just under retail. We can see these people paid way under retail. This person paid pretty much at retail. This person paid above retail, pretty close to retail, above retail. So what does that do for us? That helps us identify the buyers that are consistently paying at or above retail. If they're doing that, those are going to be our stronger buyers. Those are going to be the buyers that we want to work with. So now we've identified duplicate buyers. Now, let's say we narrow it down to 50 duplicate buyers. Well, we can then narrow it down to 3 to 5 buyers that are paying the most. That's going to give you the best buyers in your market. So that's exactly what we want to look for, is we want to see and identify the best buyers in our market. Now, this is where it starts to get really fun because now that we've identified the buyers that we want to work with, what's so amazing is that since we've looked at these buyers, we know that they bought 4 properties in the last 30 days. How many properties do you think they bought in the last 6 months? 25, 50, 100? So what this does for us is now it allows us to have a history of these buyers. We can look back at the last 25, 30, 50 properties they bought, and we can start to see trends. We can see what neighborhoods are they buying in? What zip codes are they buying in? How many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, the square footage, the price point, the year built. All that information is now available to us because we've gone through and pulled up facts in our market. So now we know we're not basing this on theory. We're not basing this on people that tell us they're buyers. With literally 30 seconds, we built a list of real buyers in your market. We found our duplicate buyers. We have now, from there, figured out which ones are paying the most, and we can reverse engineer the process now to identify what our market demand is. So if we can see what they're buying, where they're buying, that's going to tell us more of what they want. So we can look back the last 25, 30, 50 properties they bought. There's a ton of ways that we can do this. We can go through here and we can actually pull this information up. We can also come through here. Let's look at property address in this particular property. Let me just copy this. We can also even come over into a tool like PropStream, PropWire, any of those other tools that are out there, and we can actually pop in our address. We can open this up. We can come in here and we can actually see who the owner is. So if we have our owner info, so 8Ball Investments. So what's cool about this is we can also see properties that are linked to them. So obviously there's only 5 properties bought. They may have been buying in another corporation or LLC or something like that. But this gives us insights into, in that company, during a certain time frame, how many properties that they bought. So we can see here how many properties they bought. Very, very, very helpful for us. We can also do this manually, going through and searching for all the properties they bought. Now, I also developed a tool that I use with my students. This helps us really understand our market demand, because the more we know about our market, the easier it is for us to start building things out. But what we kind of look for is we could take that list of buyers that we just exported from PropStream. We can upload it and let this tool do all the work for us. So I can look at my zip code. So let's just match up zip codes, our owner last name, our building square feet, our year built, and then let's look at our last sale amount. This tool is going to sort that information for us. So right off the bat, it tells us where the investors are wanting to buy more properties based on where they bought. These are our 3 zip codes where they bought the most amount of properties. This is really helpful because if we have a limited marketing budget, you better believe we need to start focusing on this part of our market, because that's where the investors want to buy properties. So why would we focus over here? We know that this is where they want properties. Again, we have to use all this information to build an intuitive business. Let's use what actually is going on to build a stronger business. Now we can also see here who bought the most amount of properties in our area. This company here bought 5, this company here bought 4. We can also see, what are they buying? Well, it looks like they're buying properties that are a little on the bigger side, obviously 500 to 1,500 square foot plus. They're buying older properties, 1901 to 1950. Some of this stuff is really going to give us some super solid insights into what's going on. We can also see bedrooms, bathrooms. We can see all this information. And what happens when we do that, when we take that information, we can start to develop what's called pre-sold properties, okay? This is one of the most powerful things you're ever going to learn about wholesaling. So most of you watching this video are doing, again, the traditional wholesaling method where you're finding properties first. So when you do that, what happens is you are casting a huge wide net. You're having to target a whole area because you don't know where they're buying properties. You don't know what they want. You're listening to hearsay. You're listening to other buyers that are telling you this is what I want or that or whatever. But in reality, we know every single thing that we need to do now to know that if we find properties that are a fit for our market, they're going to buy those properties. So when we identify our golden ticket buyers, those 3 to 5 buyers that are buying properties consistently and paying the most, and we reverse engineer what they're buying, that tells us what they want to buy more of, because buyers are creatures of habit. Okay. So instead of going in and just marketing, casting a big wide net, we can utilize all that information to find what we call pre-sold properties. So it doesn't take us as much marketing, because instead of building a huge list, we're now building a very small list of motivated sellers. Our marketing budget becomes far more effective. We're able to eliminate so much of the people that we don't want to be targeting. And we don't have to waste all of our marketing dollars finding properties that aren't going to lead to a deal. So how do we go about finding pre-sold properties? Well, again, we've already taken a lot of that information from PropStream, and we found out what they want. So what do our buyers want to buy more of? Again, buyers are creatures of habit. So let's come in here and talk a little bit about pre-sold properties. So there's a lot of ways that we can do this, but if we start to utilize some of the information, we can narrow our list down and identify what we call pre-sold properties. So let's just remember this number here, 382,000 properties. So that's what we're starting with. So we have 382,000 properties in our area. Once we apply filters of our pre-sold properties, this number is going to shrink down, and you're going to see just how much more effective our marketing is going to become when we narrow this list down. And I'm not talking about adding motivation. I'm just talking about eliminating the details that we don't want. All right, so let's find residential properties. We want single family. We want multifamily properties, small multifamily. We want properties that are up to an acre, just like what we did earlier. And then our building square feet, we can do 3,000 square feet. And then we'll do 500 as our minimum. Your built will do up to 2012. And that may be different in your area. And we can even layer this in based on some of what our buyers were looking for, which we're going to do kind of in phase 2 here in a second. So let's see here. Next thing we're going to do, not listed on the MLS. Owner occupied, we want any, because we want to try to find people that have lived in the property. Minimum years of ownership, we want people that have lived in the property for a little while, so that's what we're looking for. owner. So we want to deal directly with people that actually live in the property and own the property as an individual. So these are actual sellers. Okay. Next thing we want to look for. So we can also look at sale price. Obviously in St. Louis, it's not that big of a deal, but we can limit our actual, information of what we're looking for. I'll show you here in a second. So let me scroll down a little bit. Estimated value. So let's say we go up to, let's just say we want to do up to 350,000. It may be a little bit different in your area. And then let's see here. We want to deal with percent of equity. So estimated equity minimum 30%. Okay, so now we can see that we went from 350,000 properties down to 82,000 properties. So you, as a wholesaler, normally are marketing, and let's say you build a list. Let's say you're cold calling and you're just coming in here. You're going to pull a list and add motivation to that list. But the issue that you're going to run into is that you're going to build that list off of that 350,000 people, whereas in reality, we needed to eliminate almost 300,000 people in our market to get a list of properties that we want to go after. So we just made our marketing so much more effective by eliminating almost 300,000 people from what PropStream had listed in our area. And this is before we even narrowed it down based on what our buyers want. And this is before we even narrowed it down based on motivation. So this is the kind of things that we need to consider when we're building a business. Again, you don't have to do any deals to know how to build your business this way. When you follow what I'm teaching you, the business is intuitive. So remember when I started off and I told you that we're building a business based off of every step that we do is going to lead us to the next step. So we found out that our market was good because we're in an area where we've got enough people and we've got enough buyer activity. We built a list of buyers based on our buyer criteria that we set forth inside of PropStream. We narrowed that list down to just our duplicate buyers, which then we narrowed it down to people that are paying the most. Now we went back and we looked back at the last 25, 30 properties that we could find of what those buyers are looking for. And we utilize that information to now narrow down this list. So every single step that we're doing is making it stronger for us to build a better business. Now, we eliminated almost 300,000 properties from our initial list, and that's before we added motivation. That's before we added what our buyer criteria is. So now, again, every step becomes more intuitive. So let me know if you're following along with that and if this is making sense. So far we've built a buyer's list. We have picked your market, made sure you're in a good market. We've gone through and started to look at the pre-sold properties. Drop a comment below. And let me know if you're following along. Let me know if this is making sense. Let me know if this makes more sense than kind of that traditional wholesaling path that most of you are probably following right now. Awesome. All right. So let's keep going. Let's take a look here of how many properties. So we eliminated almost 400,000 properties. So do you feel like this is a lot more effective now because we are understanding what's going on in our market? We can see what people are actually buying. So that's so crucial for us to really understand what these people are looking for, what they want to buy more of, and how do we use that to build a stronger business. So now what we need to look for is we can narrow this down even more. So obviously we have our buyer criteria. So some of our buyer criteria is zip codes. So let's say, for example, we need to narrow this list down in PropStream even more. We can do that based on bedrooms and bathrooms. So like, let's say our buyers are telling us they want a minimum of 3 bedroom. Well, we can eliminate any 1 and 2 bedroom properties. Let's say that they need a garage. Well, then we can eliminate anything that doesn't have a garage. If we want properties that are just built within a certain time frame, we can do that. So we can narrow all this information down. The more information we get from our market and our buyers, the more we can narrow this down and the more effective everything can become. And that's even, again, before we even add in motivation. So when we build lists like this, everything becomes so much more effective. Now let's talk about lists and motivation and things like that. So again, so many new wholesalers and so many wholesalers that have been in this business even a little while, they mistake motivation. Okay. So just because someone has a vacant property or just because someone is behind on their taxes or just because someone is in pre-foreclosure, that does not mean they're a motivated seller. Okay. So what you have to understand is that it's simply a breadcrumb. It is an indicator that lets us know that, hey, there may be something bigger going on in this person's life. So when we start to market to them, even though you built a list of people that have a motivation, that doesn't just mean that they're going to sell to us at a discount. And I can't tell you how many people that I talk to that get so frustrated. I just don't understand why it's not working for me. I'm reaching out to these people. They don't want to sell. Well, that's okay, because what happens is, again, it's just an indicator for us to let us know that there is something going on in this person's life to where they're more likely going to be a motivated seller than someone that doesn't have these types of things that are going on in their life. So there's so many things that we have to consider when it comes to motivation and making someone, not making someone, and leading someone to need to sell. Because again, in this business, we cannot work with people that want to sell. We got to find people that need to sell. All right, we're going to talk about that when we start talking about motivation and things like that here shortly. But what you have to understand is that these are simply indicators that let us know something is going on in that person's life. And not all motivation is created equal. Some of these motivation factors are far more effective than others when it comes to letting us know that there's something big going on in this particular person's life. So let's talk a little bit about marketing now, because we've kind of narrowed things down. What we need to kind of understand about marketing is that choosing the right marketing strategies is going to dictate your results in this business. Okay. There's not much more that is going to dictate the results as much as it is marketing, because what we have to understand in marketing is that a lot of you are probably buying courses. You're probably going online. You're trying to research what wholesalers are doing to find leads and deals. And there are hundreds and hundreds of different ways to find leads and deals, but not every single one of those strategies is going to be a good fit for you, because I have different skill sets. I have different budget. I have different time. There's so many things that dictate whether or not a marketing strategy is going to work for me, if it's going to work for you. All right. And that's so crucial for you to understand here, is that we need to make sure that we're choosing the right marketing strategies to set you up for success. And before we dive in and really start to cover each of the marketing strategies and what is working best in today's market and exactly what you need to do to generate leads, I want to talk just very quickly about some big concept of marketing. So there's two really big forms of marketing that we use as wholesalers. One is what we call outbound marketing, and the other is what's called inbound marketing. So outbound is where we build a list of people that fit a very specific criteria, and then we reach out to them. Inbound is where they come to us. Okay. So outbound, what you would think of with that is like, let's say you build a list of people that have a high level of motivation and then we cold call them. That would be what's called outbound marketing. Inbound would be things like pay-per-click or different stuff like that. Marketing strategies like radio, TV, billboards, that kind of stuff. That's a little bit more advanced. Now, there are a lot of people that are trying to do inbound leads through like Facebook or pay-per lead services and stuff like that. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But there's going to be much better strategies for you to kind of get going. The second thing that I want to kind of talk about is what we call primary marketing strategies versus secondary marketing strategies. So this is really important because so many of you that are watching this are new to wholesaling, which is great. I'm very excited to be able to share this information with you, but there's a major issue that's holding you back from doing deals, especially if you're already marketing, is that many of you are doing what we call secondary marketing strategies to try to find deals and leads. And you don't have any control when using those marketing strategies. And that's why it can take you 6 months, a year, or maybe never to get a deal. So there's what we call primary strategies. So these are strategies that should be your primary focus. These are strategies to where you control the outcome. And let me give you an example. So if you put $1 in, you want to be able to get $3, $4, $5 out. Or if you put an hour of time in, you want to be able to get a specific result. So again, I'm going to use the same example that I did for outbound marketing. Let's say we take the cold calling as an example. So with cold calling, with direct mail, with text message marketing, all those different strategies, there's a very specific outcome that we get. So with cold calling, typically, if you make phone calls you're going to get about a 3 to maybe 5% response rate. So what that means basically is that when you dial 1,000 different phone numbers, you are likely going to talk to 30 to 50 people. So that is an outcome. So we know that if you make 1,000 phone calls, you're going to get a predictable result. Out of those people that you talk to, maybe 5% of those people are going to say they want to sell their house. And then from that, another 2 to 5% of those people are going to actually convert into a deal. So when we do that, we can build a business around something like cold calling or these other strategies to where if we put a certain amount of time in or a certain amount of money in, we're going to get that result. And then we can reverse engineer that result to build a business and say, okay, if I do this amount of marketing, I'm going to get this amount of deals. That's what we look for and when we build a consistent business. And I'm going to teach you how to do that here over the next little bit of time here. But secondary marketing strategies, you don't have any control over. But secondary strategies are typically strategies that a lot of new investors gravitate to. So things like bandit signs or things like driving for dollars. You cannot say that if you drive for dollars for 3 hours, you're going to generate this amount of leads, and then from there you're going to generate this amount of deals. It just doesn't work like that. It's basically throwing a bunch out there and then hope that something sticks. There's far better ways to get started in the business that are going to be better, even free strategies. And driving for dollars is very expensive. It's very time intensive. You have gas, you have all these different things that you go into. Not necessarily a strategy that I utilize. But let's talk very quickly, again, about primary versus secondary. So primary are strategies that we have more control over. If we spend a certain amount of time or a certain amount of money, we're going to expect a certain result. And we can use that result to build a predictable lead flow, which is going to turn into a certain amount of deals if we do enough marketing. Whereas with secondary strategies, we don't have any control over that. You may get a deal your first hour. You may get a deal 12 months down the road. So that's what we have to kind of look at. So traditional marketing strategies that a lot of people teach when it comes to wholesaling, driving for dollars. All right. So again, driving for dollars, what the original concept with this is, go out and you look for rundown properties. You try to find the owner, you make them an offer on the property. So a couple issues with driving for dollars. Number one, it's very time, it takes a ton of time to go out and drive for dollars. It's very expensive. Gas is very expensive. And you don't really know if you're driving in the right area. You don't know what kinds of properties you're going to find. And the other issue that so many wholesalers kind of have as a misconception is that they think that if a property's run down, that means that the seller is motivated. And the issue is that it doesn't, because distress doesn't mean run down, okay? And distress doesn't equate to motivation. So what I mean by that is, there's always something else that leads to a rundown house. It leads to them selling, because rundown houses do not get run down overnight. Okay. So if that was the reason why they're willing to sell, then they would have sold a long time ago. There's always something else. So when it comes to driving for dollars, we can find those same types of leads and deals through much better strategies without going out and spending the time to drive around. And people say, oh, I love doing that. Do you want to build a business, or do you want to go out and drive for dollars? Like, this is what we're going to try to figure out today is how do we match up the right strategies that are going to be better for you to get you the predictable results? Because again, we're trying to help you close a deal as quickly as possible. We need predictability, and that's what I'm going to try to teach you today. Another one, bandit signs. Bandit signs is a horrible way to generate leads and deals, because again, it's very inconsistent. And again, we don't know the type of people that are reaching out to us. We don't know how motivated they really are. Cold calling, SMS. These are strategies that you can get predictable results from. The issue with cold calling and SMS is that in many cases, the problem that people have is that they don't realize how much cold calling they need to actually do to generate a deal. So you may need to make 5,000, 8,000, 10,000 dials before you get a deal. And for some people, if you're calling 20 people a day, it's going to take you over a year to make enough phone calls to be able to put a deal together. So many people, and this is why it's so important, is to match up what marketing strategy that we are going to do based on the time that you can put in the business, based on the budget that you have. So what we look at is that not all marketing strategies are created equal. Now, you can get deals for every single strategy as long as you're doing enough of the marketing, but we need to understand that for us, we have to be able to choose what's going to get us the result we're looking for. Direct mail, again, a very low response rate. So typically you send out 1,000 pieces of direct mail, you might get a couple of responses. Again, it's not necessarily going to be something that you're going to be able to build a business around if you have a limited budget. Referral-based business. So when we look at referrals, again, it's a secondary marketing strategy. We're not going to be able to generate consistent leads and deals through referrals, okay? Much better strategies out there than that. Another big one is going to be finding properties off the MLS. Now, that may work for you, but it's not as easy as a lot of people make it seem, because the issue with MLS properties, a lot of buyers are not going to want to buy properties that are listed on the MLS. You're going to have to put down a significant amount of earnest money, and you're not going to be able to assign a contract. So you're going to be able to close on that. So it's a very, very expensive marketing strategy. Now, again, these are not all the strategies out there, but these are a lot of the traditional marketing strategies that people teach. So the thing to keep in mind is that every single one of these strategies, you can do deals from, all right? You can build a business around these strategies. But what we have to look into and understand is that each of these have different costs associated with them. So some are going to cost more money and less time. Others are going to cost more time and less money. So what we need to look at is what is going to work for you. So if you follow a guru that says you need to cold call, and you cold call, and that's your form of generating leads, but let's say you only have 2 hours a day to work on your business. So during those 2 hours, let's just say that you have to fit everything into that business everything into your day in 2 hours. So let's say that you cold call for 1 hour, and the rest of that hour is going to be talking to buyers, going and meeting homeowners, evaluating properties, formulating offers, all the other stuff that you're trying to do for your business. So within 1 hour, let's say you're able to make 20 phone calls. If you're able to make 20 phone calls, the problem that you're going to run into is that, again, it may take you 6 months. It may take you 12 months. It may take you a year before you're able to get a deal. So again, gurus that tell you this is the only way to do deals, they're setting you up for failure. Again, some people are scared to death of being on the phone. So if you're scared of talking to sellers and you put that off and you only make 5 phone calls a day, well, it's never going to work out for you. So again, we need to make sure that we're pairing things up with your skill set, pairing things up with what's going to work best with your time, and then what's going to work best with your budget. So for example, let's say you only have 2 hours a day to cold call. Well, then we know that you're not going to be able to cold call enough in that time frame to be able to do that. So then we look at, okay, we need to outsource that, which is totally a great option. We can hire somebody for $4 an hour to make phone calls for you. Let's say we hire them for 4 to 6 hours to do that. Well, then we're going to need a big list. Then we're going to need to skip trace that big list. Then we're going to need to outsource that. So very quickly, we've racked up several $1,000s in marketing expenses per month. So now, if we didn't have the money to be able to do that, then again, it's not going to work because we don't have the money or the time to be able to get that predictable result. So that's what we need to look at is how do we find and pair the right marketing strategies up with what is going to work for you. And I've got an amazing tool that I'm going to share with you here very shortly to show you how much marketing it's going to take for what marketing strategy to generate those consistent leads and deals, and exactly how you can utilize that to kind of set yourself up for success. So let's talk a little bit about what I do with my students, because again, every single one of these strategies are fine. You can do deals from them, but I don't necessarily recommend a lot of these strategies. So what I do a lot of times is what we call hybrid strategies. So these are strategies that I've developed and I've created, and I'm going to take you really quickly kind of into my coaching portal. So this is the portal that I utilize when I'm working with a lot of my students. And essentially inside here, it's 27 modules of training, everything from all my marketing strategies, all of my acquisitions, dispositions, system scaling, but basically 22 years of experience, all broken down into kind of what you need to do. Now, lead generation, we're going to talk a lot about lead generation as we start to go through here, but I just want to give you a glimpse into some of the marketing strategies that I do, that I work with my students. And then we're going to talk about how much marketing you need to do to put a deal together. So the first strategy we're going to talk about is what I call my hidden deals blueprint. So this is what I call a hybrid strategy. So it takes multiple different strategies and combines them together to get you the best result. So what is the hidden deals blueprint? Well, what it is basically is that most people build a list. So like we did inside of PropStream earlier. So we came into PropStream, we built a list, and then let's just say you go in here and you add motivation to these lists. So let's say we did that and we built a list of people that are in bankruptcy. Let's just use that as an example. So what we look at is we would send this list out, and every other person in your market is going to be calling people that are going through bankruptcy. Same with tax delinquent, same with vacant properties. Every single person is going to be reaching out to these people. So what happens is it's very competitive. So when we're cold calling, when we're texting, when we're doing direct mail, those are very competitive marketing strategies. And if you're in a really competitive market, it's going to be very difficult to be able to put deals together. So with this strategy, what this does is I show you how to find deals hiding in plain sight. So it's not necessarily about the motivation that makes this strategy great. But what we do is we take a list, we send it out to the skip tracer, and I do what's called deep level skip tracing. So what skip tracing is we get in PropStream, we get an address, we get a name, we have to send that out to get a phone number so we can find those sellers and see if they want to sell. So most people that are doing skip tracing, they're just sending out to a cheap skip tracer that charges 3 cents or 5 cents, or their buying list is already pre-skip traced. But the issue is that most of those people on those lists, the information is going to be wildly inaccurate. About 60 to 70% of the phone numbers are not going to be accurate. So what happens is everyone's fighting over that 30 to 40%. And that's why if you ever cold called, a lot of those people are telling you, hey, you're the 20th person to reach out to me this week. And it's not because your market is oversaturated. It's because everyone's fighting over the same poor quality data. So what I've done basically with this marketing strategy, the Hidden Deals Blueprint, is essentially show you how to use what's called deep level skip tracing to know upfront the people that you're not able to reach. So again, I don't get any more accurate information, but what I do get is I know if the person passed away. If they passed away, we're not going to be able to reach them. I also know when the last time was they received a phone call or a text message. And what that does for me is that allows me to know right off the bat who you're not going to be able to reach. And then I can focus on finding those people. So I'm going to show you just really quick, just an example of what that looks like. So let me open up another file here. I should have one that's just pulled up right here. Let me make sure this is the right list. All right, perfect. Yeah, so typically what happens with a skip tracing company is that they just send you over basic information. What we look at right here is I've got the person's name. I have the age of the person. I also have if the person passed away or not. So obviously a lot of these are no's, but if we scroll down, we've got some people that are yeses. So we can identify people that have passed away, and I know that you're not going to be able to reach them if they passed away. Another thing we look at is going to be phone number information. So what's so powerful with this strategy is not only do I get 5 phone numbers for that particular person, but I know right off the bat the last time was they received a phone call or a text at their phone number. So if I look at something like this, 2021, 2021, 2020, 2021, 2016, these are the phone numbers that you're calling whenever you're doing cold calling, texting. That's the reason why you're having such an issue, is that you're calling bad information. 2019, 2022, 2018. There's so many people on this list that have a bad phone number, and you're still calling them wondering why you're not able to get deals. So what this strategy does is we're able to identify upfront the people that you're not able to find, and I show you a 7-step process to be able to find them. So instead of just calling them and wondering why you can't reach them and putting yourself right in the middle of the competition, we're going to be able to generate deals and leads using this marketing strategy. And it's very, very, very simple. So finding people that have passed away, finding their family, reaching out to them, buying their properties is a huge, huge thing that we get from the Hidden Deals Blueprint. But also finding people that don't have an active phone number. So the people that you're trying to reach that you're not able to connect, I'm able to show you how to find those people. So typically with this marketing strategy, you can get started with as little as $15. And the people that we do find, once we find them, what's great about it is they're going through major life changes. They're highly motivated. So typically these leads are going to be much, much, much better quality. And there's zero competition on those. So we're going to go through that here in a little bit. Another strategy that I have is my off-market inbound lead system. So this is a way to build a team of people that are bringing in leads and deals to you every single day. You can spend a couple of hours up front and set up a source of leads that come in every single day. 5, 10, 15 deals a month can be brought in to you using this marketing strategy, and it's completely free. This is a copy and paste system that I use with my students. That I've got all the training for your lead referrer partners. I've got everything that they need to know, so you can set this up within the matter of a couple hours and have leads coming in to you all the time. And they're off-market deals, not MLS properties. Another strategy that I utilize with a lot of my students is my arbitrage wholesaling strategy. So arbitrage wholesaling is basically doing dispositions or sales for other people that have properties that they can't sell. The beauty of what I just taught you today is how to find and identify the best buyers in your market. So with this, what I'm doing is showing you exactly how to utilize that to find people that need help finding buyers for their properties, partnering with them, helping them make more profits. So in return, they're going to split that with you. And this is a great way to make an extra $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month. And it doesn't cost you anything. So these three strategies right here, for $15, you're going to be able to generate a significant amount of leads and deals. It's great. I've also got a lot of other marketing strategies that are super in-depth that I walk you through on how to find and generate leads and deals. So again, finding and choosing the right marketing strategies are going to be so important for you. But again, what we have to figure out is how do we know what strategies are going to be the best fit for you? So again, some strategies take more time, some strategies take more money. So utilizing and understanding which of those is going to be key. So what I do with my students is I want to give you the understanding of why you're doing the things that you do. So the way that we do that is I created what's called a contact goal calculator. So let me pull it up real quick here. So this is what's a contact goal calculator. And what this does is I've got all my different marketing strategies mapped out here. So my hidden deals blueprint, cold calling, SMS, PPC, PPL, direct mail, my off-market inbound lead system, arbitrage wholesaling, Facebook lead gen. So basically what this does is this tells you based on what your goals are. So you can put in your revenue goal here and your average profit per deal. This tells you exactly how much you need to do to put together, how many leads that you need to start with, or how big of a list you need. And then from there, how many people do you need to talk to? From there, how many leads do you need to generate? How many offers do you need to submit? How many contracts do you need to get to be able to put a deal together? So it's so important. And this is all adjustable. So anything that we put in here in green, so let's just say that we're looking for 15,000 as our deal. And let's say, for example, we're looking for 15,000 is going to be our average price per deal. So by doing that, what this does, let me get rid of that. So by doing that, what this does for us is this tells me that I need to close one deal to hit my revenue goal. Now with my hidden deals blueprint, now I just use kind of industry standards here. What we look at is that we need to start out with 500 records for the month if we want to close one deal. So to do that, we get a list of 500 people. And based on how many days of the week we're going to be reaching out to, that would mean that we need to generate 100 conversations or contacts throughout the month. We need to generate 10 leads. So we should be able to get a 20% contact rate with this strategy. And then from there, 10% of those people that we talk to are going to turn into leads. And then 10% of those leads are going to turn into a deal. So this tells us exactly how much marketing we need to do, how much we're going to spend. And right here, we get an 8,471% return on our investment because we would make 15,000 by spending this small amount of money. Now let's look at something like cold calling. So same thing, same numbers here. So let's just say that we decide we want to do the same 15,000. Now with cold calling, instead of having 500 records, we're going to need 4,000 records to start out with. And that means you're going to need to do 4,000 dials throughout the month. You're going to need to generate 200 conversations. You're going to need to generate, basically double everything, if not a little bit more, because the quality is going to drop off significantly. So pay-per-click, PPC, pay-per-lead, all these different systems have very specific goals that you can set for yourself. So this is how you, as a completely new investor, can say, okay, in 60 days, I want to hit this revenue goal. I want to do my first deal, because you're able to understand how much marketing you need to do to get that first deal. So that's why it's so powerful to understand how much marketing is going to take to do that. Now, the only way to generate consistent deals in 2025 is if we track that data. So our goal is understanding what marketing strategy is going to work for us. Okay, so this is the marketing strategy. This is how much marketing we need to do to hit our goal. Okay, now from here, we need to track it. So I use what's called a KPI tracker with my students. So KPI stands for Key Performance Indicator. So when we choose our marketing strategy, let's say for this one, we need 100 conversations per month. If we come over here and say our conversation goal for the week is 25, there's 4 weeks in the month. So that tells us if we do all of our numbers and we do our marketing every single day, we're going to be able to hit that contact goal. So if we track this and we look at each week, okay, I hit my contact goal. This is how many people I talked to. This is how many leads I generated. Am I on track with what the calculator told me? If not, I need to make adjustments. Or at the end of the month, I look at my numbers and say, this is what I hit. This is what I was looking for. I need to adjust the calculator numbers. Well, maybe you need a little bit higher contact rate, or maybe you need a little bit more leads to be able to put a deal together. Because again, this is going to be based on your skill set. If you're really good on the phone, if you're not really good on the phone, these numbers are going to adjust. And that's why the beauty of this calculator. So we set our goal, then we track our numbers, and then we adjust it until we hit our end goal. So you can create something like this very easy, okay? Or obviously this isn't my share with my students. If you decide to work with me, this is absolutely something you'll have access to. But we track our outreach, so how many people we reached out to, how many contacts, or how many conversations did we have, how many leads did we generate, how many offers, how many contracts. So based on our goal, this is going to tell us, did we get the end result that we were looking for? If not, what kinds of adjustments do we need to do to make sure that we get that dialed in? So that is the only way to be consistent with your marketing, and actually predictably know how much marketing you're going to need to do to put a deal together. So we start with the end in mind. We start with our end goal. We reverse engineer that process, because what happens is the more we understand about our market, the more clear our plan is. So we choose our marketing strategy that works best for our time, our budget, and our skill set. We set a contact goal based on our contact goal calculator. We hit that goal, we track our KPIs, and then from there we adjust it until we get our end result. So that's exactly how I work with my students to help them say, we need to close a deal in the next 60 days. This is how we're going to do it. This is the strategies that are going to work best for you. Because again, if we come in here and we see that, I don't have, like let's say you're going to do direct mail. Well, if you don't have on average $3,300 to spend to do one deal, it's very unlikely you're going to be able to put a deal together. Or cold calling, if you're not able to have, $700 for skip tracing costs, another $1,500 in, dialer costs and having someone make those calls for you. Well, this is not going to be a great strategy for you. So that's why we look at using some more of those hybrid methods, because we can utilize those, get far better results. I mean, look at this right here. This is an 8,400% return on investment with a little bit of time. So we can pick and choose what marketing strategies are going to get you the results that you're looking for, and make sure that we're utilizing those to build a business. So again, driving for dollars, it works. Bandit signs, it works. But we have to know how much marketing we're going to do. And we don't have any control over these things. So you're not going to be able to say, if I drive for dollars, if I do this, I'm going to get that result. So that's very difficult, because we want to look at this as, if I put $1 in, I want to get $5 out. Or if I put $1 in, I want to get 10,000 out. So that's what we have to kind of look at. So again, choosing the right marketing strategies is going to be what's going to make or break this business for you. Okay? So now let's talk about talking with sellers. So once we start our marketing, what do we need to do? What kind of things should we say when we're talking to sellers? So what we look at is there's a couple things that we want to consider. Number one of the things that we want to do is, it's our goal to uncover 3 things on the call and to do it as quickly as possible. So the first thing we want to do is we want to uncover motivation. Why do they need to sell? Second thing we need to uncover is timeline. When do they need to sell? Third thing is we need to uncover price. What are they looking to sell for? If we don't get this information, then we're going to spend a lot of time and a lot of potential money, mostly time, but going after and wasting on these particular properties. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're creating a framework to be able to essentially uncover these things as quickly as possible. And again, inside of my coaching portal with my students, inside of the acquisition section, talking to sellers. So we break it down into 3 parts. So first is kind of the introduction. So depending upon if it's an outbound call or an inbound call. But when it comes to talking to sellers, what we look at is kind of determining motivation. So the questions to ask, how we dive deeper, how we uncover kind of what we call roadblock questions, uncovering what the timeline is, the condition of the home, the price of the home, and what types of things that we need to do to kind of do that. So I kind of break it down with a lot of my students. This is kind of our call-in sheet that we utilize. So you can have these printed out. So when you're talking to a seller, you're going to be able to get all this information. So we don't ever want to ask them specific questions like property address, their name, phone. They're going to uncover that as we start to go through that conversation. But what we want to look at is understanding all these things. What's the motivation? What's the timeline? What's the price? So the way that we uncover that is through open-ended questions. So tell me about your home and why you're considering selling it. Okay, that's a great open-ended question, because they don't know what you want them to say. So uncovering is going to happen very quickly and naturally when we do that. From there, dive deeper. Well, it sounds like a great place. Why are you considering selling the home? Ask them, have you ever tried to sell it before? Do you have any other offers in the project? Just dive deeper, try to understand more about what's going on. And then we kind of look at, well, if we come down here a little bit later, what are things that may kill our deal? We don't want to waste our time. So if we look at roadblock questions, have you had anyone else look at the property? Has anyone made any offer? So this is going to help us uncover maybe what they were asking for the property, and maybe why they denied another offer if the offer was too low. So we can kind of uncover pretty quickly, is something changed now? Why don't you keep it as a rental? Have you ever thought about listing it? Sounds like a great property. Why not? Where are you going to go if you, do you have a place in mind? So again, these are things that help us uncover timeline. Well, if they say, well, I don't have anywhere to go, well, then we know they're probably not going to accept an offer right off the bat. Let them know, if I was able to make you an offer on this property to come to an agreement, do you have a place that you can move to? Are you able to sign a contract today? So these are all types of things that really help us kind of uncover things like timeline, motivation, price point, condition of the home. So these are the types of things that we need to look at to make sure that we are dealing with a motivated seller. Because again, what we kind of look at when we're talking with a seller is that not everyone's going to be motivated, and that's okay. But we want to make sure that, number one, they have motivation, okay? And sometimes they're motivated, but the timing's not there yet. Maybe they aren't able to sell for a month or two, but they know they're ready. Or maybe they have a timeline, but they're not motivated. Or maybe they're just asking too much for the property. So that's why we want to try to uncover those things as quickly as possible. And that framework is going to be really important to be able to make sure that we do that. Okay? So now what's really helpful is that if we find someone that's ready to sell, we know they're motivated, we know they have a timeline, and they've given us a price, now it's time for us to actually make an offer. So I'm going to share with you how to make win-win offers, but also how to evaluate the property, how to formulate that offer, and what that looks like to be able to put a deal together. So we talk about what's called win-win offers. And before I move forward, does that make sense? When it comes to uncovering things, let me know. Timeline, motivation, and price. Those are all things that are really, really important for us. Now, some of you also, too, may be dealing with people that aren't that motivated. And a quick way to kind of know that is if they say they don't have a price in mind, or just make them an offer or something like that. Many of those people are tired of talking to wholesalers, and they're just looking for someone to make them an offer. So what you want to do in scenarios like that is a lot of times we will anchor the price. We could say something along the lines of, oh yeah, I actually was looking at a property over here in your neighborhood the other day, and I saw your neighbor sold that property for $50,000. And if they say, oh, I would never accept $50,000 for that property, then that's called anchoring. So we're throwing a price out there without actually giving them a price. Because what happens is that's going to gauge their kind of temperature level. If they say, well, I would never accept an offer for $50,000. When you say, well, I didn't offer you $50,000, I just let you know that's what your neighbor's house sold for. So that's kind of one of the things that we kind of want to look for. But let me know in the comments, is that making sense? Are we able to kind of understand kind of what that framework is and how we ask open-ended questions to make sure that we're gathering the information to quickly decide, is this person ready to sell? If not, we're going to follow up with them. Okay, so let me know, drop a comment below. Let me know if that makes sense. Making win-win offers. So what is a win-win offer? Well, win-win offers are offers that sellers are willing to accept that are low enough for buyers to basically still want to buy that property from us. Okay, so it's a good thing for the seller. It's a good thing for the buyer. Now, the way that we do this is because obviously we're dealing directly with buyers that are willing to pay more because we don't have people that are going to lowball us. So that's one thing we look at. But also what we need to consider when it comes to these sellers is that we want to get in front of the right opportunities. So earlier, I told you how building those pre-sold properties lists, identifying the right types of sellers, using motivation and those hybrid marketing strategies that we talked about earlier, that's going to help us get in front of the right types of sellers, which is so key. But again, we want to make sure that we're making good offers, that we don't have to lowball sellers. And part of the reason why so many people can't get offers accepted is because people are using old, outdated formulas to try to make offers to sellers. So if you're using Mayo or 70% of ARV minus repairs, you're going to struggle in a major way in this business. And the reason is I've been doing this 22 years. Mayo and that 70% formula was used 20 years before I ever got into this business. And the reason why that was developed and created was because they wanted to make it easy for everyone to be able to make offers. But the issue that you run into is that markets change, okay? You cannot use the same formula on a $120,000 property that you're using on a $350,000 house. But also 40 years ago, prices were consistent. There weren't this huge fluctuations all over the country. So if you're using the same formula here and you're using it here, your offers are going to be wildly different. And you're either going to end up lowballing the seller, losing the deal, or you're going to end up getting that property in contract for too high that your buyers are not going to be willing to pay for. So what we need to do is understand how we can make win-win offers. So again, we need to do that by not trying to put everything into one box. So we need to be able to understand our buyers. And by structuring our business in a way that we've identified our buyers up front, what this does for us is we can look and see what those buyers had paid for similar types of property. So if we get a property over here and our seller says, oh, this is what I'm looking for the property. Well, I can look back and see, well, my buyers are only willing to pay this amount in that area. So if there's a discrepancy, then we know that we don't have a good deal, or we know that we do have a deal. So that's what we need to look for and kind of understand, is that we need to use what's actually going on in our market to know what kinds of deals we have. That's why it's intuitive. And this market-driven wholesaling method allows us to understand why we're doing the things that we are doing instead of guessing. Whenever we can look back and say, buyers are paying this, this is what I need to be at or under to make this a deal. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do that, okay? But let's talk about traditional comping and making offers on property. So what we have to understand is that a lot of people use what's called ARV, or after repair value of a home, okay? The issue is that for you as a new investor, it's a guess, okay? You have no idea. You're not an appraiser. You're not a contractor. You're not all these different types of things that you need to understand to be able to compare ARV on a property. So if you ask 40 people what ARV is on one house, you're going to get 150 different responses because it's subjective. It's a guess. So we want to try to make things as easy as possible for us. So from there, we have to then, if we're using the old way of making an offer on a property, we have to find out what it would sell for if it was all fixed up. Then we need to estimate repair costs. So here's the thing about repair costs. So many people are telling you you need to estimate repairs. And in some cases, we don't have any choice. But we as wholesalers are completely guessing. And the problem is that, think about it like this, okay? Let's say you go in and you estimate repairs and you're on the high side, okay? Let's say you think it's going to cost you $100,000 in repairs to fix this property up. If you use that number and you make that offer, what's going to happen is you're going to lowball that seller because you think it needs $100,000 in repairs. But what if your buyer only thought it needs $25,000 in repairs? You just killed your deal. Okay, so this is what you're alienating buyers or sellers by trying to do too much. We're not contractors. We should not be estimating repairs on properties. Okay. These are all subjective things, and there's too many different variables out there. So again, just an example, if we use the old methodology, we have a house that would sell for $100,000 all fixed up, needs $10,000 in repairs. So that would mean that we would basically be at 100,000 times 70, which puts us at an offer of 70,000 minus the 10,000 in repairs, minus our desired wholesaling amount. So we would have to be at 50,000 or something along those lines. So what we need to consider is that, again, there's a lot of guessing that goes in it. What if we did these numbers a lot different? What if it was a $300,000 property, and it needed $100,000 in repairs, So again, that's what we have to kind of consider, is that our offer is going to swing in a major, major, major way based on what numbers we utilize for this. Okay. So it's very, very, it's one of those things that we need to really kind of consider, is that there's a lot of variables that can go wrong. So what I like to do in this business is use what's called low comps, or as is properties, because again, we're in the as-is business. We're in the retail business. We don't need to look at what a property would sell for, okay? We're not appraisers. We're not contractors. So the best way to find out what a offer should be to a seller is to see what our buyers paid for other as-is properties in our area, okay? So if you're trying to use Mayo, which you may have to in certain circumstances, you're using high comps, or what things would sell for on the retail side. For the strategy that I'm teaching you, we're going to look at what other as-is properties sold for. So high comps versus low comps, okay? Now, what's really cool is there's even something called hidden comps, okay? And hidden comps are high comps. We can see what it sold for before it was fixed up. So let's run through a couple of examples, okay? So let me pop up PropStream real quick, and let's just pop in any particular address. So we had this particular property pulled up earlier. So what we want to kind of look at is when we're dealing with properties like this, if we click on details, we can see essentially comparables and nearby listings. That's kind of what PropStream has. So there's 100 different comparables. So we can adjust this. So this is going to give us a 1-year date range. It's going to give us our square footage. It's going to give us our distance. It's going to give us basically bedrooms, bathrooms, year built. So we can add a lot of this information in here. But what we want to kind of look at and what we want to kind of consider is that look at some of these properties and what they sold for. So our particular property, when did it sell for last? Do we have in here? Public record sale, sold 12/5/2024. Okay, so that's a pretty good comp. So we know that it sold for $90,000. All right. So if we look over here, this particular property, it only sold for $3,000. This particular property here sold for $132,000. So we know that right off the bat, this is most likely kind of our as-is price point because our other properties, our high comps, are selling for $132,000, $141,000. But we can see this one sold for $90,000, this one sold for $43,000, this one sold for $111,000. So when we go through here, we can see this one might have needed a significant amount of repairs, whereas maybe ours might not have needed as much. So when we come in here, we can look at what the low comps sold for versus what the high comps sold for. And when we compare 2 or 3 of these and kind of see what the numbers look like, we can get an idea of what our offer should be. So let me show you some examples of what that looks like. So I developed a calculator that I use with all my students, and this is something you get access to if you want to work with me. But basically, we've got things like an ARV calculator, repair cost calculator, MAO calculator, maximum allowable offer calculator, low comp offer calculator, and Zestimate offer calculator. So when I'm dealing with students, typically what we want to look at is we always want to start out with our low comp calculator. So in a scenario, kind of like what we have here in PropStream. So we have 3 low comps inside here. So we would have to kind of compare these a little bit more than what I'm going to be able to do on this call. But we have one here for $43,000. We've got ours for $90,000. And we've got another one here for $97,000. So we would add those 3 into our offer calculator. And then we would also put in our square foot. And it's going to give us our average low comp, okay, and our price per square foot. So what that does for us is if we have all of our good information in here, it's going to spit out basically what our average low comps are. So we would know that our offer needs to be underneath what this is, okay? So we got a $56,000 property, $105,000 property, $110,000 property, all with our square foot. So this tells us right now our offer is going to need to be under $90,000. All right. What if there's no comps in our area? Well, we can use Zestimate, we can use PropStream value, Redfin value. We can average that and see what the average price point is on that, the average value, and then we can use essentially that as our ARV. Okay. Now another ARV calculator. So let's say, for example, we're going to go the hard route. We're going to use our ARV and then our repair costs and then our MAO. So to do that, what we do is we do the same thing. We come in here and say, okay, what are the properties selling for? So we put 132, 141, and another one of these that sold in here, 124. So we would add those numbers in there plus our square foot, and that's going to give us our average ARV. So let's just say 190,000. Okay, so our average price per square foot, 114,000. So we'd come in here and say, okay, it needs light rehab. Well, light rehab, let's plug our square foot in here. That's going to give us our cost of rehab, so 13,470. So now we come over here and we say, okay, let's add our numbers in. So our ARV for this particular property, we're looking at 190. So we're putting in here ARV 190. We'll put that in here. And then let's put in here our repair cost. So we have 13,470. Okay. And our MAO, so let's just say that our buyers are willing to pay 80%, or let's just say they're willing to pay 85%. And then our desired profit, that's going to tell us what our maximum allowable offer is. Well, I screwed up here, guys, because I put this in here. There we go. So that would tell you what your maximum allowable offer is. So this calculator is going to walk you through all those different steps. And we do that just based on our simple sold properties. So that's exactly what we look at when it comes to using our high comps versus our low comps and how to know if we've got a good deal on our hands or not. So hopefully that makes a lot of sense. Let me know if that makes sense and if that's clear. And again, if you want access to all these calculators and all these tools that I put together for everybody, again, this is something we can set up a call and I can tell you a little bit about how I work with students. At the end of the call, I'll take a couple minutes to kind of go through that as well. But this walks you through everything. No guessing. We can look at what our buyers are willing to pay, what our buyers are willing to do to be able to put offers together and to get the business up and running as quickly as possible. All right, so let's take a look at the real estate contract that we're going to use. Now, again, this is extremely something, we want to keep it as simple as possible when it comes to real estate contract. I use just a really simple one-page wholesale agreement, and you can find something like this online. You can have your attorney draw it up, whatever you want to do, but this right here is super basic, and it's a page. That's it. And the reason why we do this is because we don't want to confuse the sellers. We want to make sure that we keep it as simple as possible. So these are the things I'm going to walk through that are important inside of a contract. So the first thing here is that we're going to see here the contract is dated. So you're going to put the date here in which the buyer, which is going to be your name. You can put anything you want in here, your name, your company name, because again, if you assign the contract, then it's going to remove your name and put whoever the end buyer is going to be there. So it doesn't really matter. Purchase from the seller. So then you're going to put essentially right here the seller's name. So John Doe, whatever their name is. And then the actual property. So the property address is going to go right here. The following described real estate. Okay. In consideration, the sum of earnest money. You can put $100 there. You can put $10 there. You can put $500 there. Whatever you want to put in there. Whatever you agree upon with the seller to purchase the property at this particular price. So let's say $100,000 or whatever you're going to put in there. The condition of this purchase are as follows. So this is basically what it's going to say. So property sold as is, really simple, okay? This right here says that they're going to make it accessible for you to show the property. If the buyer's unable to complete the purchase, the earnest money is the only thing that's forfeited. Pretty simple. If the seller cannot provide clear title, then you're released from the contract. The next thing here is that the buyer is going to select the closing agent. So that's us. We get to pick the closing agent. Purchase contract is assignable. This agreement is subject to the final inspection. So you get 10 days to basically find a buyer for the property. Taxes to be prorated. That way, they know that they're paying for the taxes, and the buyer's going to pay the closing costs. This right here gives you 30 days for closing, but you can always select more if you want. And then this offer, basically this is all encompassing. There's no other contract forms or anything like that else that's here. And if there's any other terms or anything you want to put inside here, and then you would sign it, buyer, seller, and then print. And that's it. That literally is it when it comes to contract. You want to keep it that simple, because then that way there's nothing to confuse the sellers. Okay, that's exactly what we want to kind of consider. Now, dispositions, what that means basically, disposition stands for essentially disposing or selling of the property. So finding buyers. So what I want to do is kind of walk you through what that process looks like, because we want to keep this as simple as possible, considering it's going to be your very first deal. Okay, so what that means when it comes to disposition. So there's lots of different ways you can structure deals. So if you're in an area to where you can do contract assignment, that's going to be the quickest, easiest, cheapest, fastest way to do it. Or you can also do double closings. There's simultaneous closings. There's all kinds of ways to structure deals. So what we're going to talk about today is just really simple contract assignment. So what is a contract assignment? So what that means basically is that we get a contract with the seller. Okay, so we went to the seller, we talked to them, we got a contract, they signed it, they sent it back to us. Now it's time to set up a closing. Okay, so we're going to go find our buyer. Once we find our buyer, we're going to do what's called an assignment of contract. So that basically says that we're going to take our name off of the original contract. Okay, it's going to put our buyer's name on there. They're going to agree to everything else inside that contract. They can't change anything. They can't change where it's closing, closing date, price point. None of that stuff can change. They're going to close in our place. And for us to be able to assign that contract over to them, they're going to give us a fee. Okay, so that's the way contract assignment works. So let me show you a super simple contract assignment. Let me find one here. I've got one opened up. All right, so this is what a contract assignment looks like. Very simple. Again, half a page. So it says your name here, hereinafter, assignor, the buyer under the agreement, dated. So what that means, this is going to be your name here, dated. So whenever you dated the actual original contract, okay? And then hereinafter, the agreement. So that's going to be the actual contract. By and between assignor and the seller. So the original seller's name is going to go right here for the property at, and then you're going to put the property address right here. Hereby assigns all right, title, interest in said agreement to the assignee. So that's going to be your buyer, your end buyer, for the consideration of. So how much money are you making on the assignment? $5,000, $10,000, $100,000, $1 million. So right here is where you're going to put in what you're making. And then here, this is the part that says they have to agree to everything else that's in the contract. Okay, so all this did was takes your name off, puts their name on. Okay, assignee agrees to perform all covenants, conditions, and obligations required under the said agreement. So that just means they have to agree to everything under the original contract. Assignee further agrees to hold you harmless from anything that you do or can't do. The seller and assignee agree and understand that the assignor is not acting as a real estate broker, but representing, essentially their principals selling their interest in the above referenced agreement. You're gonna have this dated, and then you're gonna sign it, and then the assignee, whoever your buyer is going to be, assigns this, and they sign it, and then the property goes to closing. Okay, so that's what a contract assignment looks like. Now, how do we find a buyer? Well, we're going to talk about finding a buyer. We're also going to talk about closing and kind of what that closing process looks like. But essentially, once we understand that's going to be the easiest way to structure that, now we're going to go find a buyer. What's great about this now, so with the strategy that I've shared with you today, we've already identified who our buyers are. We've already identified who we're going to sell to. We already know what they're willing to pay. So all we do is we look at, of our buyers, those 3 to 5 really good golden ticket buyers that we have, who is this property the best fit for? Pick up the phone, we reach out to them and say, hey, my name is Brian Haskins. We talked the other day about property, or maybe you haven't even talked to them yet. You just let them know, hey, notice that you're buying a lot of properties over here in this particular area. I've got a really good deal. It's actually a better deal than the last 2 properties that you just bought. Do you have any interest in meeting me over there to take a look at the property? And then that's it. Because again, these are the buyers that are buying deals consistently. So we know they're looking for as many properties as possible. They don't want to be emailed. They don't want to be put on some buyer's list. Pick up the phone, call them. Okay. So it's as simple as that. When it comes to doing dispositions for your property, we already know who's going to buy it. We already know who it's going to be a good fit for. So what we look at is say, okay, I've got 3 to 5 buyers. This property here is going to be the best fit for this person. Pick up the phone and reach out to them. That's going to be the best way to do that. Now, if they're interested in the property, that's going to be, the time that we do our contract assignment. So they ask you, what are you trying to sell the property for? Well, we're going to put out there what we're trying to sell that property for based on how much money we want to try to make. And then from there, once we do that, we fill out that contract assignment, which is what we just went through. So that really simple contract assignment. And that's going to put their name on the contract. And that's going to set everything up for us to be able to put the wheels in motion for a closing. Now, if you are not using the strategy that we just talked about, this is kind of the time where you're starting to scramble because you've already got a property under contract, you've got that window, now you're trying to find a buyer. But for us, we already know up front who the best buyers in our market and what kind of a property that we have and who it's a fit for. So we're going to be able to be very, very, very strategic in who we want to sell it to and for. We know what they're willing to pay because we can see what they already paid for other properties. So again, we're trying to make it as easy as possible. Okay? So closing, what do we need to do to set up and ensure a smooth closing, and what kind of paperwork is needed to be able to do that? So finding a title company or a closing attorney is very simple. You can get a referral from another real estate agent in your area or a real estate attorney in your area or another wholesaler. Go to your local RIA or just look up online. At this point, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of posts about title companies in all major metro areas and stuff like that. Paperwork. So what happens as far as paperwork goes? Well, we have our original contract and we have our assignment contract, and then we have our earnest money. That's what goes over to the title company. That's it. The title company, the closing attorney, they pretty much handle everything. So your role essentially is to get them the information, get them the buyer information, get them the seller information, let them know that it is going to be an assignment. So that's why the information is going to be a little bit different. Let them know that you're going to be there at the closing. Okay, you'll be there at both closings. Let them know that also you want to be the main contact point with the buyer and the seller, and that when we structure things that way, what happens is it becomes a lot easier for us because in case something comes up, we're a part of it. So we're in constant communication with that seller and that buyer. So even though we assign that contract over and we're no longer a part of the deal, that seller is still relying on us and we are our contact point for them. So we want to get that deal to the closing. So keep it simple, go to the closing, make sure you set everything up for a smooth closing. The contract is really, really all you need, that. And then your assignment contract, you send that over with your earnest money to the title company. They're going to run title, make sure that it's clear title. And if there's no issues, then they're going to set up a closing. And then at closing, that's when you'll actually get paid. So you will get your money at closing. Now, in some cases, if you have a buyer that you're working with and they want to pay you upfront your assignment fee, you can absolutely get that. But a lot of times it's structured to where you're going to get a check at closing. So that's pretty much it when it comes to kind of structuring the deal. So let's just kind of go back through some of the stuff that we kind of talked about today because we covered a lot of information over the last couple of hours here. So again, first deal framework. So we talked about why most people struggle and what we need to do just by adjusting the steps that we take in our wholesaling business and using that market-driven wholesaling system to be able to do that. We talked a lot about understanding your market, showed you how to know if you're in a good market, if you're not, how to pick a new market, how to identify the right buyers, the exact criteria. From there, how to reverse engineer and understand the pre-sold properties, how to find those pre-sold properties. From there, how to choose the right marketing strategies that are going to work for you. We built some lists inside PropStream, showed you how you can look at motivation and all these other different things that you're going to utilize. I shared with you the hybrid strategies that I use with my students, and those are things that I can definitely help you out with. Showed you exactly how to know how much marketing to do, how to track your KPIs, how to kind of put all that into a little bit of an action plan. Talking to sellers, how to uncover motivation, timeline, price. Those are all great things. And then from there, how to make win-win offers. We went through and we did some examples of high comps and low comps. So that's going to give you kind of that whole process. And then also using the strategy that I talked about not going through and using ARV and Mayo and all those different types of things, but just using our low comps to get offers done. We went through real estate contract. I showed you the one-page contract. We went through, I showed you the assignment of contract, the deal structure, what closing looks like, how to find a buyer for your property. So let's wrap this up by talking about an action plan. So again, for those of you, well, first of all, I hope that everything made sense. If there's any questions that you have or things that you want me to kind of clarify, let me know. You can drop them in the comments. But I wanted to make sure everybody's kind of following along. But again, I want to kind of share with you an action plan, how to take this information and actually use it to close a deal, because this is the exact framework that I use with everybody. Obviously, there's a lot more details and a lot more guidance that I do with students that I work with, but this is the same plan that we follow with everything. So I wanted to share with you because, again, information is great, but we want to actually utilize this information and put a plan in place to be able to start putting deals together. A lot of times when we start to consume information, our mind starts to kind of wander and we kind of get into that analysis paralysis. So I wanted to kind of give you some really simple action steps that you can utilize right now so that way you're not wasting any more time or money. So to get that first deal done, we want to start with the end in mind. So again, start with our revenue goal. We're going to reverse engineer that process. We're going to identify who we want to work with and who our buyers are going to be. From there, we want to identify exactly who we're going to sell those properties to based on our market demand. Okay. Identify what they're buying, what did they pay, and what do they want to buy more of. Choose the right marketing strategies that are going to be the fit for you and your budget and your time. Set a goal, implement that goal, track it, and tweak it until we get that end result that we're looking for. So that's going to be what you want to look for. So we're going to start with our end in mind and reverse engineer that process from there. So hopefully you enjoyed going through everything today. I know we covered a lot, and I appreciate you sticking with me here to the end. We're coming up on almost 2 hours here. But if you are on this call and you want information about working with me, or you want me to help you implement this, I want to talk a little bit about kind of how you can work with me. So if you want to kind of remove the trial and error, you want to kind of speed the process up and kind of get a shortcut, I do have a couple of spots open to where you can work with me. So let me talk a little bit about how I work with students and how I can help you. As you can see by what I've taught you today, I do things a lot different. Okay. It's no different when I'm working with a student. I do things a lot different there as well. Most people are just going to give you information. Again, they're going to overwhelm you with information and say, come to me with questions. So what I do that's a lot different is I actually build the business with all my students. So we do everything over Zoom. It's a one-on-one Zoom call. We're going to pick your market together. We're going to identify your market together. We're going to build your buyers list together. We're going to identify what those buyers are buying and what they want to buy more of. So we'll reverse engineer that process together. We'll pick out the marketing strategies together with you. We're going to ultimately create and implement those marketing campaigns. So starting day one, you're going to have a fully built, fully functioning wholesaling business. Plus, you're going to be able to get access to everything that I utilize with my students. So as you can see here, obviously, this is a part of the information portal that I use with students. So everything's mapped out. We've got 90-day roadmap of success, everything day by day, week by week, exactly how to get started. We have training on mindset, wholesaling, how to get more done in the business. We've got weekly support calls, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. Foundation training. So a ton of in-depth information of picking your market, building your buyers list. We work through building all this together, building out the perfect property finder, building your motivated sellers list, going through lead generation. So introduction to lead generation, creating a marketing budget, setting that contact goal, KPI tracker, skip tracing, CRM, follow-up. I provide everything for all of my students. Lead generation, I've got 7 different marketing strategies here that we'll incorporate and include. Step-by-step acquisitions, talking to sellers, evaluating properties, estimating repairs, setting the appointment, meeting the homeowner, presenting your offer, formulating offers, deep dive into real estate contracts. These are all things that we're going to work on together. I was able to not I wasn't able to go as in depth today on this because we only had 2 hours to kind of work together. But inside here, I have so much information. Dispositions, structuring deals, finding buyers for deals, closing, all of this stuff right here is all things that you're going to be able to utilize. Plus, you have direct access to me and the community. So you got hundreds of other investors that you're able to kind of work with. Also, you can direct message me any questions that you have. I also host calls twice throughout the week for students. But again, we're working together to build a business. We start with the end in mind. We reverse engineer that process. You'll know how much marketing you need to do, how to do it. We track it. We go through your numbers together and really dial in the process so that way we can get you results. Because again, I want to build a business with you and actually help you get the results you're looking for. So if you want help, should be something on the screen that pops up, or you can go to www.sixfigurewholesalermethod.com/callbook1. Or you can reach me on Facebook, through email, whatever you guys want. But if you go here, you can set up a call, sixfigurewholesalermethod.com/callbook1. We'll go through the investments, help you, more importantly, dive a little bit deeper, actually put together a plan first, make sure it's a good fit, map out those marketing strategies with you, and really kind of get things dialed in. So that way we can actually put together the best game plan to help you win. That's what we'll do. And if it's a good fit, we'll talk about the investments for marketing. We'll talk about the investments to work with me, how long you get to work with me, how we set up the one-on-one, how we build everything out, timelines, timeframes, all that kind of stuff will happen on that call. It'll take us about 15 to 20 minutes to be able to go through that. But I really look forward to working with anybody that's looking for some additional help. And again, here, just we'll wrap up the call. You can see some students here. Kendall did $25,000 on his first deal. Sarah, she was about to give up. She tried for 6 months on her own, made $35,000 on her first deal as she was moving across the country. Another one here, Cam did $18,000 on his first deal. Second deal set up to close in 2 weeks. Denise made $10,000 on her first deal. Quan, $18,500 on her first deal. Second deal already in a contract. $28K, Eric did. Josh did $9,000. I mean, look, here's the thing. What I have done is I've tried to eliminate the roadblocks for most new investors by structuring the business in a way to where I'm teaching you how to understand your market, how to identify the best buyers in your market, how to know what your market demand is, what they're buying and what they want to buy more of, how we laser focus in on trying to find those properties so that way we can shorten the curve, we can laser focus in on our marketing, be way more successful with the marketing that we do. Helping you choose the right marketing strategies that are going to actually help you succeed. How much marketing you need to do, how you need to do it, exactly what's going to work for you. Once we start talking to sellers, how to do that, how to formulate your offers, how to structure deals, those are all things that we were able to cover today in just 2 hours. But if you want more help implementing this, feel free to reach out. Let me know. Like I said, I've got a couple spots open right now to currently work with some people. If you have any questions or you're ready to work with me, you go to sixfigurewholesalermethod.com/callbook1, and I'll drop in the comments as well. But have a great night, everybody. I'm really glad we spent a couple hours together getting everything built out, and hope you have a great start to 2025.